Florida is beaches, theme parks, and sun. At least that's the picture on postcards. But step past the bright colors, into the springs, swamps, and forgotten towns, and you find something else. Caves that swallow divers without leaving a ripple. Flights that fall from the sky only to return as haunted machines. Chairs in quiet cemeteries that locals refuse to sit in. Forests that take teenagers on short walks and never give them back. Lighthouses where laughter still echoes long after the keepers are gone. And skies above the Gulf that burn with lights no one can explain. These aren't stories whispered for fun. They are disappearances, accidents, and legends written into Florida's past, and they still wait in its waters, in its woods, and in its night sky. Lock your doors, put on your headphones, because after this video, you'll never see Florida the same way again. The disappearance of Ben McDaniel. Vortex Spring, Florida, 2010. On August 18, 2010, 30-year-old Ben McDaniel drove to Vortex Spring, a popular diving spot in northern Florida. It was a place he knew well, a limestone spring with clear blue water leading to a network of underwater caves that drew divers from across the country. That afternoon, several people saw him gearing up. He chatted with staff, walked toward the water, and descended into the cave system. He was confident, but there was a problem. Ben wasn't certified for cave diving. Beyond the first gate, the passages twisted into darkness, dangerous even for experts. When he didn't come home, his truck was found in the parking lot. Inside were his wallet, cell phone, and dog. Everything suggested he had planned to come back, but he didn't. Rescue divers were called in. Over the next 36 days, some of the most experienced cave divers in the world combed every inch of the vortex system. They expected to find something. His body, a piece of equipment, anything. They found nothing. His tanks and gear were missing. His body was gone. The cave gave back no answers. Theories swirled. Some believed he had gone deeper than anyone realized, wedged into a crevice so narrow no diver could reach him. Others whispered that he staged his own disappearance, weighed down by debt and personal struggles, vanishing to start over. And still others suspected foul play, that the cave was only a cover story for something more sinister. But the truth never surfaced. Vortex Spring has claimed lives before, but in those cases bodies were always found. With Ben, it was as if the water itself erased him. Even today, divers say they feel a presence in the cave, an unease that tightens the deeper you go, as if the spring remembers what it took. Ben McDaniel's disappearance remains one of Florida's most enduring mysteries. A diver who entered the water and left behind nothing but questions. And if a cave can erase a man without a trace, what about the Everglades, where a flight crashed in 1972 and parts of the plane seemed to carry its dead with them into the skies? The vanished Flight 401. Florida Everglades, 1972. On the night of December 29, 1972, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 was on final approach to Miami International Airport. The plane, a Lockheed L-1011 TriStar, carried 176 people. For most of the flight, everything was normal. But as the crew prepared to land, a simple indicator light failed. A bulb showing whether the landing gear was locked in place. The pilots circled over the Everglades to troubleshoot. Distracted by the light, they didn't notice the plane slowly losing altitude. At 11:32 p.m., Flight 401 slammed into the swampland. 101 people died. 75 survived, many badly injured, their screams echoing across the black water and sawgrass. The crash was investigated, explained, written off as human error. But the story of Flight 401 didn't end in the Everglades. When Eastern Airlines salvaged usable parts from the wreckage, they installed them in other aircraft of the same model. Soon, crews began reporting strange things. Pilots swore they saw the face of Captain Robert Loft, who had died in the crash, reflected in cockpit windows. Flight attendants claimed to hear First Officer Donald Repo, also killed that night, speaking to them during pre-flight checks. Passengers described a uniformed man who vanished before their eyes. These were not isolated incidents. Reports came from multiple crews, across multiple flights, always on planes that carried parts salvaged from 401. Some accounts were even logged in official maintenance records before Eastern quietly ordered the reports to stop. Eventually, all salvaged parts were removed from service. The sightings ended, but the legend remained that fragments of Flight 401 carried not only metal and wires, but the spirits of the crew who refused to leave their posts. The Everglades still hold the wreckage. The swamp reclaimed much of it, burying twisted steel and shattered glass beneath mud and water. But survivors say that on still nights you can hear echoes, shouts, cries, voices calling for help, long after the lights went out. Flight 401 was more than a disaster. It was a reminder that some tragedies don't end when the reports are filed. Some take to the skies again. And if a crash can leave voices haunting the air, what about a chair in a quiet Florida cemetery, where locals say the devil himself still waits for anyone brave enough to sit? The Devil's Chair. Cassadaga Cemetery, Florida. In the quiet town of Cassadaga, often called the psychic capital of the world, sits a small cemetery with a legend that has unsettled Floridians for decades. At its center is a brick chair built into the cemetery wall. Locals call it the Devil's Chair. By day, it looks ordinary, just a weathered seat where mourners might once have rested. But by night, the stories change. According to legend, if you sit in the Devil's Chair at midnight, you won't be sitting there alone. Some claim to hear whispers in their ears, low voices that grow clearer the longer they sit. Others report the feeling of hands pressing down on their shoulders as if something unseen wants them to stay. A few insist they saw a figure beside them, only to turn and find empty air. But the strangest part of the legend is the beer. Locals say if you leave an unopened can of beer on the chair overnight, by morning the can will be empty, drained, but still sealed. Over the years, visitors have tested it, and many swear it's true. Skeptics dismiss the Devil's Chair as folklore, a mix of pranks and imagination. But in Cassadaga, where spiritualists and mediums still gather, the chair is treated with caution. Few are willing to sit in it after dark, and those who do often leave shaken, unable to explain what they felt. The Devil's Chair remains a reminder that not all of Florida's dangers live in the swamps or the sea. Some sit waiting, silent in the heart of a cemetery. And if a simple chair can drain a beer and whisper to the living, what about a forest that takes a teenager on a short walk and erases her forever? The disappearance of Tracy Repetto, Ocala National Forest, 1998. In the summer of 1998, 19-year-old Tracy Repetto walked into Florida's Ocala National Forest and never came back. She wasn't a tourist. Tracy was a local, familiar with the woods, known to her family and friends as careful but adventurous. On that day, she went for what should have been a simple hike, carrying only the essentials. When she didn't return, searchers quickly found some of her belongings along the trail. Small items, but no clear sign of where she had gone. The search lasted weeks. Helicopters circled the dense pine canopy. Rangers and deputies combed the undergrowth. Dogs followed her scent briefly, then lost it completely, as though it had dissolved into the forest air. The Ocala National Forest is vast, 600 square miles of scrub, pine, and swamp, dangerous in its own way. Temperatures soar, predators lurk, and the terrain disorients even seasoned hikers. But what unsettled investigators was how abruptly her trail ended. It was as if she had walked off the map, leaving no imprint behind. Theories spread. Some suspected she had fallen victim to crime, abducted in the forest where few would hear a scream. Others believed she simply got lost, claimed by heat, dehydration, or swamp. But without a body, without a trace, her case remained suspended in silence. To this day, Tracy's name appears on Florida's missing persons registry. Her family never received closure. The forest that swallowed her remains mute, its shadows thick, its paths endless. Stand in Ocala at dusk, and it's easy to imagine how fast someone could vanish there. One wrong turn, one step into the green, and the trees close around you forever. And if a teenager can disappear without a sound in Florida's forests, what about a lighthouse on the coast, where footsteps echo on empty stairs and the laughter of long-dead children still rings in the tower. The St. Augustine Lighthouse Hauntings, Florida 1870s present. Rising above the coast of St. Augustine, Florida's oldest city, the black and white spiral of the St. Augustine Lighthouse looks like a postcard image. But for generations, it has carried a reputation that is anything but picturesque. To locals, it is known as one of the most haunted places in the state. The current tower was completed in 1874, replacing an older structure that had collapsed into the sea. During its construction, tragedy struck. Several children of the construction overseamen lived on site, playing near the unfinished tower. One afternoon, 3 of the girls climbed into a small rail cart used to carry building supplies down to the water. The cart broke loose. It rolled down the tracks and plunged into the water below. 2 of the girls drowned. Soon after, workers and families living nearby began reporting strange sounds. Laughter, high-pitched and playful, echoing through the empty construction site. Small footprints appearing on freshly poured cement. Tools going missing and reappearing in odd places. Over the decades, keepers of the lighthouse reported their own experiences. Heavy footsteps climbing the spiral staircase at night when no one else was inside. Shadows darting across landings. The smell of cigar smoke from a keeper long dead. Visitors have claimed to see the faces of young girls staring from the top balcony, girls no one else could see. The stories were strong enough that paranormal investigators made the lighthouse a centerpiece of national programs. Recordings captured voices, some whispering, others laughing. Cameras caught doors opening on their own. Even skeptics admitted the reports were unusually consistent across generations. Today, the St. Augustine Lighthouse is a museum. Tourists climb its stairs by day, enjoying the view of the Atlantic. But at night, during dark tours, the atmosphere shifts. Guests describe sudden chills, unseen hands brushing against their arms, and that same laughter, light and fleeting, like children playing where no children remain. The St. Augustine Lighthouse stands as both a historic landmark and a monument to loss. And for many who enter, it is proof that some tragedies echo forever in the places they happened. And if voices still call from a lighthouse tower, what about the skies above Florida's Gulf, where in the 1980s, a man claimed to capture dozens of photographs of flying craft that experts still argue about today? The Gulf Breeze UFO Incidents, Florida 1987-88. In November of 1987, a building contractor named Ed Walters stepped out of his home in Gulf Breeze, a small town along Florida's panhandle. What he claimed to see above the trees would ignite one of the most famous and most controversial UFO cases in American history. Walters said a glowing craft hovered silently over his backyard. He grabbed his Polaroid camera and snapped photo after photo, capturing a saucer-shaped object lit from beneath. Within weeks, more sightings were reported across Gulf Breeze. Residents described strange lights darting across the sky, beams shining down over the bay, even objects following cars along quiet roads. Walters' photographs, published in the local newspaper, spread nationwide. Some experts dismissed them as crude hoaxes. Others insisted the images showed objects that couldn't be explained by weather balloons or aircraft. The Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, launched an investigation, sending teams of researchers into the area. For more than a year, Gulf Breeze became the center of a UFO frenzy. Dozens of locals, teachers, police officers, even city officials, filed reports of encounters. Some claimed to have seen craft hovering silently offshore. Others swore they felt heat radiating from beams of light that cut through the night sky. Skeptics later argued that Walters fabricated his photos using models. Yet, even after Walters himself faded from the spotlight, sightings in Gulf Breeze continued. Too many witnesses, too many consistent reports to dismiss easily. Today, the town is still whispered about among UFO researchers. For some, it remains proof that something extraordinary crossed Florida's skies in the late 80s. For others, it is a cautionary tale about belief, deception, and the blurry line between the two. Stand on the shore of Gulf Breeze at night, with the dark water stretching into the Gulf of Mexico, and you understand the unease. The horizon is endless, the sky feels close, and you wonder if those lights are gone, or if they're still waiting to return. 6 mysteries. 6 echoes of Florida's hidden side. A diver swallowed by a spring with no body to bury. A flight that left its dead behind, yet carried them into the skies again. A chair in a cemetery that whispers to those who sit too long. A teenager erased by a forest that gave back nothing. A lighthouse where the laughter of drowned children still lingers. And a town where the skies themselves seem to open, dropping lights no one could explain. Florida sells itself as sunshine, beaches, and escape. But beneath the surface, it's a place where stories don't end. They circle, they haunt, they wait. Tell us, which of these Florida mysteries will you never forget? And where should we go next? But be careful what you ask for. Some places are already listening.